HowExpert! Top 10 lessons learned from the subtle art of not giving a fuck. HowExpert publishes how-to guides by everyday experts. Visit howexpert.com to learn more. 1. Motivation doesn't come by sitting around, but by doing something. Action isn't just the effect of motivation. It's also the cause of it. We have all had times when we felt unmotivated and held back from accomplishing a task or a goal, whether it be personal or business related. In a later chapter of The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, Mark Manson proposes something he dubs as the do something principle, which states that action, inspiration, and motivation all work within a loop. Yes, action comes from motivation, which in turn comes from inspiration, but inspiration itself comes from taking action oftentimes. If you feel unmotivated to start on something that you either need or want to accomplish, do something. Do anything. Sitting around to wait for inspiration is a waste of time. Starting by taking any step, whether small or large, will likely feed into a drive towards continuation. 2. Responsibility is not equivalent to fault. Responsibility and fault often appear together in our culture, but they're not the same thing. In a portion of Chapter 5, Manson tackles the topic of responsibility and its relevance to causation, or being at fault. It's normal for us to assume that being responsible for something means being directly associated with the actions surrounding it. But he enlightens that taking responsibility for your problems is not equal to being the cause of them. In order to illustrate his statement, he uses the example of finding a random newborn baby on your front porch one morning. It's not your fault that a newborn was placed in front of your door. However, that baby is now your responsibility. According to Manson, accepting responsibility for our problems is to take the first step in solving them. It may not be your fault that you had an exclusive upbringing and never developed good communication skills. But if you truly want to become someone who touts flawless sociability as an adult, it is entirely in your hands to reach such a goal. The more we choose to accept responsibility in our lives, the more power we will exercise over our lives. 3. The importance of values. Our values determine the metrics by which we measure ourselves and everyone else. When thinking of having values, we probably picture specific noble traits that we prioritize to help shape who we are and the people that we want to become. Manson states that to have values is to have metrics by which we measure ourselves too. For example, holding a value of being richer than your cousin will have you measuring your wealth in concern to his. If you find that your cousin holds more than you, you're likely to consider yourself a failure. Prioritizing good values is what leads to a happier life, Manson claims. Good values are characterized by being immediate, controllable, reality-based, and socially constructive. Holding a value of self-respect is an example of a healthy one. You have complete control over how you choose to view yourself. The effects reflect in reality as people around you will notice the change. And it's something that you have complete control over. Self-respect is an endeavor that can be chased at any given moment, even now. 4. Everyone is average, most of the time. We're all, for the most part, pretty average people. But it's the extremes that get all the publicity. In a world that's heavily influenced by social media and celebrities, it is easy to idolize others and place certain people on pedestals as being above the rest of us. But in this section of The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, called The Tyranny of Exceptionalism, we are reminded that most of everyone is average at a majority of things that they do. To be amazing at something, one would have to dedicate over hundreds of hours and a bunch of effort to that skill or thing, and that one skill will probably be the only thing that they are great at, all other aspects of their lives falling into the average or below average categories. But the truth is, as Manson puts it, that the vast majority of life resides in the humdrum middle. The bulk of everyone's life is slow, uninteresting, and quite average. Our constant feeding of exciting television, movies, social media, and other forms of entertainment has fooled us into thinking otherwise, because all that they show to us is the most extraordinary parts. But as Manson reminds us, near the end of the chapter, the vast majority of your life will be boring and not noteworthy, and that's okay. 5. The art of caring. You can't be an important and life-changing presence for some people without also being a joke and an embarrassment to others. Manson drops this quote in the first chapter of the book, where he discusses the method of caring, or as he puts it, the subtle art of not giving a fuck. His further elaboration also allows us to understand that life is filled with adversity, and that to live without it is impossible. And that's okay, because life will always find a way to give you problems. When a person has no problems, life will automatically find a way to invent some for them. Manson states, therefore, we are constantly choosing what to care about. And this is okay because as time goes on and we grow older, we learn what is worth caring about and what isn't worth giving the energy to. And that is what maturity is. 6. Success comes after a road of failures. If someone is better than you at something, then it's likely because she has failed at it more than you have. Many people hold the general belief that you are either good at something or not. That whenever starting on a new adventure, there are only two outcomes, success or failure. On the contrary, Mason states that is not the case at all. Failure is not the opposite of success, but the road that leads to it. If someone is good at something, then there's a high probability that they have failed plenty of times at it before. But most of us are indoctrinated into being afraid of failure, and therefore avoid failing. But Manson assures us that we can be truly successful only at something we're willing to fail at. 7. Things will suck at times. As mentioned in the previous section, failures are inescapable, and a part of life, even though they suck, because life sucks at times. If it hasn't sucked yet, don't worry, it will. Near the beginning of his book, Manson enlightens that when a person has no problems, the mind automatically finds a way to invent some. This means that the smallest inconvenience can appear as the biggest problem in your world, if you have none other. The biggest takeaway, nonetheless, is that it's okay for things to suck at times. Manson says, but many of us have forgotten such a thing, and that's the cause of the growing epidemic of psychological health issues. This epidemic is what leads to a culture of depression, overuse of drugs, and acts of domestic terrorism. Most of these social issues wouldn't be as severe if we were all to realize that. 8. Life itself is a form of suffering. Life is essentially an endless series of problems. The solution to one problem is merely the creation of the next one. Suffering in life is as natural as feeling physical pain. Though some suffer more than others, it is something that we all experience. The truth is that suffering is biologically useful, Manson claims. The suffering that we go through provokes change and adaptation. It teaches us to move forward. As a species, we humans have evolved to be dissatisfied with what we have. That dissatisfaction is what drives us to strive for what we don't have. But the truth is that we will always strive for more because problems never go away. They just improve. 9. Happiness is not a solvable equation. A lot of people hold the mindset that happiness is a distant but reachable goal, that it's a final destination, the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Many believe that the means to reaching it is by tangible solutions, such as finding a romantic partner, making a certain amount of money, buying their dream car, or fulfilling any other desire. This is not the case, unfortunately. Manson teaches us instead that achieving and, more importantly, maintaining happiness requires struggle. Happiness comes from solving problems, he theorizes, asserting that to be happy, we have to completely deal with obstacles in our life. This doesn't mean postponing it or finding a way to avoid it for some time. Bliss comes from eliminating our dilemmas in an absolute manner, one by one. Want to get in shape? Start working out and eating healthy. Feel like you're unappreciated at your job? Ask your boss for a raise. Partner is upset at you for ambiguous reasons? Sit them down and talk it out to find a solution. Life struggles are endless, but true happiness comes from planting your feet and tackling the issues one after the other. 10. You are enough. You are great, already, whether you realize it or not. In the last chapter of his book, Mark Manson ensures that readers that despite how we feel, despite what others might think, and despite what artificial standards we set and compare ourselves to, we are enough. More than enough. Actually, we are great. Why? Because we continue to move on, in the face of endless confusion, and a road that only leads to a certain inescapable death. We continue to push forward. Yes, the last chapter harshly reminds us that we're all going to die. We all know this, but unlike most animals, if given the same awareness of their limited morality, we continue to set goals for ourselves, continue to choose what to care about and what not, continue to hold on to values that define who we are. That's what makes us amazing and successful, even if we don't know it. HowExpert publishes how-to guides by everyday experts. Visit HowExpert.com to learn more.